Hi guys, my name is Emma Freudig and this is my consistent speech. So when I think of my childhood, there are three really big things that have ended up defining who I am as a person. I had a pretty crazy childhood in my opinion, and that definitely had an effect on who I turned out to be and what I want for the future. One of the biggest was my dad being in the Coast Guard. If it wasn't for that, my parents wouldn't have met when my dad got transferred to Maine. Because my dad worked long hours, I didn't see a lot of him, and not only that, we also got moved around the country a lot. I was born in Ellsworth, while my dad was stationed here, but shortly afterwards, he was transferred to Virginia. After 7 years in Virginia, he was transferred all the way to Washington State, where we lived until his retirement. After his retirement, we moved back to Maine, which we've been visiting in the summer since I was a kid. Not being able to set down really firm roots into a community was definitely a hard thing as a kid. Just when I started making good friends and getting to know people and starting to become like a part of a new group, I would have to leave all over again. Another thing that really changed my life was the transfer to Washington. We decided for some reason, I'm still not sure of, to drive across the country with my 3-week-old brother in tow. So my dad really wanted to show us all like the beauty of America, so we had an extended camping trip as well. Once he retired and my parents decided to move back to Maine, we decided to do the same thing but make it even longer. I might act like I'm complaining, but it was like the most amazing trip of my life. For 2 months, my huge family was packed into 2 cars. This time my grandmother came with us, and we traveled down through Oregon, down into California, and across the country, up into Canada, and finally back to MBI, where I've been living since 2003. So this is a picture of my family in the Badlands, and then this is the Poe rainforest in Oregon, or Washington. This is me hiking Half Dome in Yosemite, then the Golden Gate Bridge, and Yellowstone, and that was just at a campground with some friends that we met along the way. So that trip really instilled like a love of nature and travel in me that I still have. You know, seeing countless of the most beautiful places in America was really powerful at such a young age too. I love the beauty that the earth has to offer, and I can't wait to travel more as I grow up and experience other incredible places across the globe. And not only that, it gave me an adaptability that I have to this day. I find that I can be happy in almost every situation that I'm placed in, which is no small gift. And I know it's a combination of aspects from my childhood. Another thing that really affected me was being homeschooled until 6th grade. When we lived in Virginia, we spent a lot of time studying historical events and also lived pretty much inside of the historical triangle of like Jamestown, Yorktown, and Williamsburg. So I loved history as a child, and I still do. And being able to like see the exact same places, the events we learned about, was really incredible. Like we would learn about some like colonists settling Williamsburg, and then like the same day we would go and we'd walk around Williamsburg and we'd like talk to that like actors who were reenacting scenes and stuff. So this is a picture of me in like an officer's berth of the Susan Constant in Jamestown. They have like a big rebuilt full-size model of the ship there that you can go to. It's really cool. This is at Yorktown Beach. This is like, the picture is really dark, but it's like a little reenactment of like a fife band that they had in the Revolutionary War. This is a reenactment at Gettysburg that we also saw. This is me and my 2 brothers inside of a giant turtle. And then this is Williamsburg, and then this is Monticello. So we did a lot of traveling when I was a kid to different historical areas on the East Coast, and that was really cool. So I also had a lot of time to read, and I loved reading when I was a kid. I still do, but I would still love to read as much as I used to, but now I have a lot of homework, so I can't. Being homeschooled also encouraged me to have the focus on my life be on my family, my siblings and parents, causing me to be a little bit more mature for my age, mature faster than most kids, as I didn't have to deal with like the dramas of other kids, because at that age kids can be pretty dramatic and not usually that nice to each other, and I didn't have to deal with that at all. It also, one of the biggest takeaways I guess that I got from being homeschooled was that learning isn't something that happens in one particular place or like environment, but it's a lifestyle, like a lifelong curiosity for the world around you. And in relation to my future, this curiosity is a really great thing. These are some colorized pictures of the Roman and Saxon battles, 400 AD. And then these are Roman gladiator contests, also colorized.
Because they had black and white photography.
Yeah, black and white. So we colorized them. This was Devil's Den, and me and my brother, and this is also me and my brothers and my mom sitting on a cannon in Gettysburg. So another thing that I hope to bring with me to my future are some of my personality traits that developed as a child. I love to organize people, and as a child I was always the one who would get games started and get people organized into doing something in my large family. I'm one of 6 kids, so there's a lot of us to organize. I have one memory from camping in the Badlands as a kid. I was really bored that day. I think I was probably like 10 maybe. And I convinced the kids who were camping near us, like the whole campground, I convinced the kids to play a game of tag. Like this huge campground in the Badlands, and we were all playing tag that I had organized, which was pretty legendary. Another thing that I guess could be seen as a bad thing by a lot of people, but I think is really helpful, is the fact that I'm extremely stubborn. Another little story was when I was 3, actually. One of my first memories is being like thrown backwards from an electric outlet in our house in Virginia and having like blackened fingers for the better part of a month. My mother had told me that I definitely was not allowed to touch the outlets in the house. I was not allowed to go near them. But as she tells me, being a stubborn little kid, I just grinned at her and started shoving a luggage key into the outlet just to see what would happen, because I wanted to do it and she told me no, so I was going to do it. So basically, if I have a goal in my mind and I really want it, pretty much nothing is going to stop me from getting what I want. Another thing that I got from my childhood was being really positive. My parents have always impressed the idea of mindset on me, and that if my attitude is good, the results will be good. So this leads me to my future, and I know that these traits will help me achieve the career that I want more than anything. Both of my grandmothers worked in the medical field. My grandmother on my mom's side, Mary Beale, worked in the Bar Harbor Hospital for many years. And my grandmother on my father's side, Molly Freudig, was a pediatrician. So helping others definitely runs in the family. And because of this, I've been fascinated with the career since I was a child. Not only that, but with 6 siblings, the focus in our family has always been on helping and serving others as best as you can. I have a lot of love to give, and I want to do it by helping the most vulnerable and injured in the form of a doctor. I've been particularly drawn by combat medics. Not only is the path to get there remarkably more simple than other kinds of medical work, but it's really meaningful. I would be the first line of care for those injured in battle, and not only would I work to save members of the U.S. Army, but I would help others in desperate need too. This is a quote that I found from like active combat medic, saying that there's a lot that we do that's not field related. It's about going out and helping third world countries and helping those in need after natural disasters. I love my humanitarian work with the Army because it allows me a chance to give back to those who don't have a chance. We set up makeshift hospitals and provide care where it's needed. We go to the source. We don't wait for them to come to us. This really calls to me because this career isn't about the wars. It's about making people's lives better and helping to bring peace. After my active duty years would be over, the Army could also pay for me to return to school with no cost to me and get a bachelor's degree in nursing. After this, instead of applying for a job at just like a regular hospital, I want to join one of two non-governmental organizations, or NGOs, that I've always really felt called to. When I was in 8th grade, we did speeches on like heroes to us, and I chose NGOs, Mercy Ships, and Doctors Without Borders. Both of these organizations are always looking for experienced nurses and doctors to help with their life-saving and life-changing practices. Mercy Ships is the largest non-governmental organization in the world. Basically functions as floating free healthcare for third world countries, providing surgeries and giving medical care to those who need it most, and also have no way to pay for it. Mercy Ships currently has one ship, the Africa Mercy, and that's based on the coast of Guinea and then Senegal and Liberia right now. My aunt actually worked on the Africa Mercy ship, which is kind of what spurred my interest in it. She worked there for a year and said it was like the most moving, powerful, and life-changing experience to be able to give care to the people of Africa and change their lives for the better. I don't know if you can see this, if the desk is in the way, but it says in low-income countries, it's estimated that 85% of children need a surgical condition, or need to be treated for a surgical condition before the age of 15 in third world countries. And working on a Mercy ship, you get to provide these life-changing surgeries that they wouldn't be able to afford otherwise. So the second organization is Doctors Without Borders. It's a team of first aid providers to the poorest third world countries, working out of as many as 70 countries from Afghanistan to Zimbabwe. There's nowhere they won't go to help others. Having the experience from a combat medic will help me to have the quick reactions that I need in often war-torn places that they work in. The path to combat medic can be achieved in multiple ways. I would first join the Army, which I could do through ROTC, which pays for your college, or USMA. And later, when I graduate from college, the job training for a combat medic specialist requires 10 weeks of basic combat training and 16 weeks of advanced individual training, including practice inpatient care. Not only that, but the Army would pay for me to return to school to receive a bachelor's in nursing or possibly medical school. After working in the Army, I would move to the Mercy Ships or Doctors Without Borders, where I intend to work for many years. After retiring from this line of work, I could continue my career in an emergency room, as my grandmothers did, working as an ER nurse. The freedom and demand of this job really calls to me the most because I could travel wherever I was needed in the country. There's a lot of job stability in nursing because there's a shortage of 9.3 million nurses worldwide. I could travel all over the country wherever I wanted to go, so I would be able to experience that love of travel that I really kind of found as a child. And there would also be a lot of freedom. I wouldn't have to worry about being unemployed. And those are two really powerful things that I think could contribute to my happiness as I grow. So the life that I had a child and have now, with helping others, having like always been the main focus in my life, will help me to create a fulfilling future for myself, doing what I love in some of the most amazing places in the world. Thank you.
slides up.
Yes.
Well, if you're gonna go as an Army medic, what would you do in college as an undergrad? Do you think, is there a pathway for
There is a
that, or-
pathway. You basically can just like pick some other, because like the training is the 10 weeks and 16 weeks. So after I graduate from college, I would go to that as my specialty, and then I would be deployed.
Right, but like, what would you major in college?
I'm not really sure.
You don't have to make them line up.
No, they don't have to line up. Okay.
What would the like sort of advanced individual training you talked about include?
It's just like there's like the basic combat training, and then advanced individual training is just basically like accelerated like medical school or like basic nursing.
Oh, cool.
Any other questions? Mr. Egan again.
Well, no one else
I
can
have
ask
one.
questions.
Austria.
Would you consider going to college and studying history because you talked about how much you like that?
Yeah, that would be really cool. I think that like the link between wars in the past and wars right now and how we could like avoid them by learning from history would be like a really interesting thing to go into. Awesome.
You mentioned that like the trip you went on to see your dad, the multiple trips make you love travel. Would you be like excited to work for many different places with Doctors Without Borders or as a nurse?
Definitely.
Travel around.
Yeah. Okay.
What would you think about like in-home care rather than ER after your service?
I mean, I'm not opposed to it. I just find the like fast-paced environment a little bit more attractive, I guess, and something that I'd be better at.
And you wouldn't mind, you said you didn't see your dad a lot. Would you mind being away from your family a lot?
I would mind that, but I think that my parents have done a really good job raising me, so I'm kind of getting to the point where I'm like ready to go see what I can do to help the world too, you know?
Yeah. And what was the ship that you guys were on? Was that
Oh,
related?
that was the U.S. Wisconsin.
So wasn't that all related to your dad's Coast Guard time? Or?
I think he was on that ship at some point, but we went to visit it, and I was really thought it was the coolest.
And you never thought Coast Guard or Navy?
I'm not quite as drawn to that as I guess I like being on land more.
Awesome. Give it up for Anna.